Hello, St. Anne Parish, and welcome to this week's Quick Things. We're going to talk about the Pope and pets and a few other things, but first, just some quick updates on happenings in the parish. Christmas is over, so we have a nice selection of still pretty nice poinsettias that are looking for a home. They are in the gathering space, so you can stop in anytime. The building is open all day long. Stop in and take a poinsettia or two or three, however many you want. Our goal is to dispense with them because we have no use for them anymore. The thing about poinsettias as opposed to Easter lilies is that Easter lilies last a couple weeks and the Easter season lasts 50 days. Poinsettias last forever and the Christmas season lasts just a couple weeks. So they are yours. Please enjoy them. If you know someone who might appreciate a nice blossoming flower in their home, please give it to them. You can seem very generous. Well, I guess really generous, you would have taken it in December, but they still are beautiful and hopefully will brighten up some spaces. So again, poinsettias in the gathering space. Grief Share is our program for folks who are grieving, and that can take on many forms for many reasons. There's information in the email, the Quick Things email about Grief Share and how to connect with that. It begins on Monday. So I'd really encourage you, if you might benefit from that, to pursue that possibility, or if you know of others who might appreciate some conversation with others who are grieving to kind of guide you through that experience. We call it a process, and that's not always very helpful because a process presumes, I think, that there might be an end, and there's not necessarily an end to grieving. But I think what we can come to do is to adapt and to live in the midst of that grief. So again, Grief Share starts on Monday. Please be attentive to the information in the email, as well as in the worship aid from last Sunday. We have a new scripture study program that has begun to look at the Sunday readings, kind of anticipate listening to them, delving a little more deeply than we might in just terms of our listening or even a brief homily. That will be at 6:30 on Tuesday. If you have a Bible, bring it along. If not, we'll have some extras, or maybe you won't need one depending on the week. But it'll also give us a real good insight into Luke's gospel. So that's at 6:30 on Tuesdays in the gathering space. We already began this week, but we'll be back again next week. And it's not something you have to be at every week. It's not necessarily building one on another. In fact, it'll kind of be independent. Each week will be a little different, well, since the gospel passage that's proclaimed is different. So that Sunday scripture study is at 6:30 on Tuesdays in the gathering space. We have a blood drive coming up at St. Anne's. An Eagle Scout candidate is sponsoring this blood drive as part of the her Eagle Scout project. It's going to be January 20th from noon to 5 p.m. So just kind of keep that in mind. I know for myself, it's been a long time since I gave blood, just because I had traveled to Haiti and because you couldn't give blood for a long time after you had been there. And so I just never gotten back into the routine of that, but I hope to do that on January 20th. And if you can help make that blood drive a success, these are kind of difficult days for the Red Cross and other blood drive organizations, in that the demand is great. And because of COVID and things, supplies are depleted. So we can help that effort gathering or coming around to January 20th from noon to 5 p.m. July is a long way off, but our youth mission trip is gearing up. In fact, the first organizational meeting for that trip will be this coming Sunday. So if you have a teenager in your household, or you know of someone who might benefit from such an experience, please maybe check the email or Facebook. There's a video with some of the people who participated last year. You can check out that video, maybe share that video with the folks, the teenager who you think might appreciate or benefit from such an experience, and let John Schmidt of our staff know that you're interested. You can connect with him through the email or at our website as well. So the youth mission trip coming up in July. Finally, just to talk a little bit about Mass in McKillop Hall, or McKillop Chapel, as I called it on Sunday, went very smoothly. A couple people observed how easy it was to come right in the entranceway and into McKillop Hall, right off the parking lot. Do try to be attentive to the handicap parking markers. There are also red or orange cones that mark some additional parking spots that we might reserve for people who have limited mobility or need that. And then again, the encouragement for those of us who are able to park further away and walk and leave spaces closer to the church for those who aren't so able to walk easily. So just to keep that in mind, sometimes we're driving in, we see that parking spot and we just go right on in. Well, let's think about who else might park there, and maybe we can park a little further away. Now, I realize for some of us, we need to park closer, but let's just kind of try to keep that, maybe bring that to mind, because it's maybe something we haven't thought about before. I'm always impressed when I'm out greeting people before Mass, how many people do park further away. And I've never brought it up because I think it's obvious they're parking further away so that other people have spots close at hand. So let's just try, if we're able to do that, let's kind of try to accomplish that. So I think those are the announcements of things coming up. There is some other information in the Quick Things email, so please be attentive to that. So the Pope and pets. You may have seen some headlines over the last couple of weeks. New York Times headline, Pope scolds couples who choose pets over kids. CNN.com had a headline, opting for pets over children is selfish and takes away our humanity, says Pope Francis. Yikes, or ouch, or I don't know what our reaction might be to that. And so maybe this is even difficult or dangerous territory for me to venture into. First of all, I guess I would say that, like Pope Francis, I'm coming at this as a guy who does not have children and does not have pets either. So maybe I'm not the one to speak to it, or maybe that's the reason I could. People have asked me if I wouldn't want to have a pet. So they see priests, we're not married, we don't have families immediately. We have extended family, obviously, parents and siblings and things. And they've asked if, would you like to have a pet? Well, I would, except I don't know when I would take care of the pet. And I talked to my brother, who complains all the time about their dogs. So I don't know, and, having to take them out for a walk, having to let them out, what the inconvenience when they want to go away, of who takes care of the dog, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not sure how I would necessarily take care of a pet. Although if I did, this is the pet I would want. I'm not sure what I would name my pet, but this would be the kind of pet I would like to have. So a real dog who can, with some personality, but gentle, with kids and things like that. This would be the dog, the pet I would want to have. I'm not a cat guy. I'm not a little dog guy. I'm this kind of dog guy. But I don't see pets being in the offing for me. Regardless of that, let's look a little bit closer at what Pope Francis has said. And I'm helped in this pursuit by a podcast on the Jesuitical website, or the Jesuitical podcast. Zach Davis and Ashley McKinless engaged in a conversation, kind of parsing what Pope Francis has said. He was giving an address, his Angelus address, I believe, on part of his Wednesday audience on January 6th, thereabouts. And he was talking about, he's been doing a series of presentations, catechesis on St. Joseph. And this particular day, he was talking about the importance and the generosity of adoption, of the importance of welcoming children into people's homes through the process of adoption. And somehow, in the midst of that, kind of as an offhand remark, some have said, he did refer to pets and the important role that pets have in the lives of some people, and suggesting that some people are choosing pets over children. In a previous situation in 2014, someone had asked him, do animals count more than children? And he observed, that for some people, there did seem to be that sense. But of course, that's rather simplistic. And it's not that people are choosing pets over children. But one of the Pope's concerns comes in terms of demographics in Europe, especially, where the birth rate is very low. And so the question is, how do we continue to exist as a culture if we aren't willing to welcome children? And it's not that that decision is being made, pets or children, but that is one of the Pope's concerns. He has spoken at different times of a demographic winter in Europe because of the low birth rate. The other observation, and this came in response to in response to this comment by the Pope, a commentator in Latin America wrote, when you come from a place where people live like dogs, it is scandalous to see dogs live like people. And I think of these TV commercials that we see where they're almost serving the dogs raw meat or meat that would normally go to people because we want the dog to have the best possible food. And I know, we know those who have pets, and I've heard others talk about, the importance of veterinarian care and how much that costs. There's a veterinarian who's on Wisconsin Public Radio from time to time. And I mean, my gosh, people will call in with questions about veterinary care, a pet that's been diagnosed with some kind of cancer or other disease, and they're just struggling. They're struggling ethically with what to do and how to, whether they can justify the expense of the veterinary care for their pet. And this veterinarian is very, I think, kind of dogmatic in that she doesn't allow for any option. There's no consideration. You have to give your pet the necessary care, regardless of what it costs. And certainly when we're dealing with people, that's clear. I guess from a moral standpoint, I think it's a little less clear when we're talking about pets. We want to care for them properly, but I think we also get into this kind of complicated situation of, do we treat our pets, dogs and cats, or what other pets there may be, the same way, the same moral standards as we have for people? And I think that's part of kind of the dilemma that the Pope is trying to speak through. Again, I know how I've had pets, and I know how much we love pets, and I know how valuable they become to us, especially those who are alone or and children and families as well. Pets. I mean, we have parishioners who have Christmas cards, and the dog is right there, or the dog or cat are right there with the family, and that's wonderful to have that connection with these animals. But also recognizing that they aren't people, and that sometimes other judgments can or should be made. In hindsight, maybe the Holy Father would have phrased it differently. Especially, I think it was startling for some because he chose the name Francis, and we think of Pope Francis and his great affinity for animals, at least in legend. But just truthfully, there's veracity of that in his lifetime as well. So I think the Pope was maybe hadn't thought out exactly what he was saying or the ramifications of that, as I maybe have not thought out everything I've just said in this quick things conversation about pets and how we care for pets and how we make decisions morally and ethically in terms of pets. The other thing that was said in this Jesuitical podcast was that, sometimes we need to recognize that the Holy Father is an 85-year-old man. And, not that 85-year-olds don't think clearly or speak clearly, but he's coming at it from a different perspective. So he's coming at it from the perspective of, first of all, he's also a man. Well, I guess that's the other thing. He's a man who has never had children. He leads a church in which many of the people under him are also people who have never had children and will not have children. He's also coming at it from the standpoint of someone who doesn't have a pet. So he doesn't know how beneficial they can be. Pope Benedict had a cat. I didn't know that until this whole controversy developed regarding Pope Francis. So maybe if Pope Francis had a cat like Pope Benedict did, that might have softened his approach as well. But also to realize that he is speaking to, this situation in Europe, the demographic realities there, lowering birth rate, etc. Um, so I think it's just, we want to give Pope Francis cut him a little slack, considering his experience, where he's coming from, the various other complexities that he's dealing with, and not to see the Holy Father as diminishing the importance of your pets or those pets that are important to you, or others in your family, people who have a great appreciation for pets, as I would for this pet if it were really mine. This is just a picture of a dog that I bought at an art gallery in Rome, actually, when I was visiting there several years ago. And so instead of a real pet, I have in my house this picture of a pet. Not a lot of moral or ethical consideration go into that, and so I defer to those who have to make those hard decisions. That's the Pope and pets. If you weren't aware of the controversy, now you are, and I hope I didn't draw you into thinking negatively towards the Holy Father. I think, if nothing else, maybe it just helps us have a greater regard for our pets, but also recognizing then the moral and ethical dimensions of our coexistence here with dogs and cats and adults and children, and the complicated realities of life. Another P, I think, in the lead off to this was in the email anyway. The email tagline was precautions. Last week, the Wisconsin Council of Churches basically turned the clock back a year in terms of their COVID precautions, discouraging in-person worship, encouraging churches to go to only live stream. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel had a story about where they interviewed the pastor of an Episcopal church in Milwaukee, who I think might have only had in-person services once in December. It was really, I just couldn't even believe it. And they were going back to only live streaming as a result of this encouragement. So the Wisconsin Council of Churches is a kind of an association of various Protestant denominations. The Roman Catholic dioceses of Wisconsin have like an ancillary, we're like affiliates. We're not actually members of the Wisconsin Council of Churches, but I get their emails and they provide some interesting insights on scripture sometimes, different social justice activities and things like that. But I will say that on the matter of precautions, they have really kind of stayed where we were back in March, April of 2020. And just opened the door ever so slightly in the last few months, and now they've gone back to that 2020 position of only online worship. Well, we're not going in that direction, and I'm not sure that we should. And part of it is, I don't know that what we do should be so contrary from what the rest of the world around us is doing. And so when we had only online worship back in the spring of 2020, that's pretty much what everyone else was doing. There weren't other public events, but now there are concerts and events at the Grand Theater. People are going to restaurants. People are having parties and doing various things. And I'm not advocating that we all go and do those things, but I don't know that as a parish community, we're going to be more reclusive and close the door differently than other entities of life are. And so I think we want to be cautious. As of now, every Friday or Saturday, an email will be coming out to parishioners with the link to Mass. So I do hope that maybe for some of us, it's important that we do stay home, that we participate online. And I know a number of views for our online Mass last week was much higher than normal. Now that would have also had something to do, I suspect, with the weather, and that's another encouragement. when we have bad weather, when there's a blizzard, when it's freezing cold, there are some among us who should please stay home, and that's why we're going to continue to offer the live stream, even in McKillop. But as a general rule, if you're going out doing other things, I hope you'd also be coming to Mass. It's a fairly safe environment. I hope most of us are willing to wear masks when we come to church, although it's not a requirement. We're not going to think ill of you if you don't. But just to try to be as cautious as we can while still engaging with worship and kind of existing in the world that we now have in 2022. Recognizing that it isn't 2020, and I don't know that as just a parish we can recreate that, nor would we want to. I think we want to be cautious within the realities that exist for us. So that means vaccinations, that means masks, maybe distancing, and we have space to do that when we come to Mass. So I think we're being cautious without being, and I don't want to judge other precautions, but I think the Wisconsin Council of Churches is kind of a little bit too far in a conservative direction in terms of their COVID precautions. So we want to be cautious. We want to do the things that make us safe, and I think that we can, and for the most part, are doing that when we come for worship. I'm going to offer a prayer, kind of a prayer for a few weeks into the new year. So it's not a New Year prayer. It's a prayer after we've already been into the new year a little bit. But before that, I want to share a Facebook post from my friend Julie in Green Bay, who posted last weekend. She said, she was remembering a post that she had seen a year ago. And the quote was, "I'm not calling it 2021 until it stops." Okay, let me try that again. "I'm not going to call it 2021 until it stops acting like 2020. And she said the same applies for this year. She's not calling it 2022 until it stops acting like 2021. And I guess I'd agree with that. It seems that 2022 seems a lot like 2021 at this point, and maybe that's true of every year, but we always think that the new year is going to be somehow better. So with that in mind, and that's kind of the point of this prayer that Father Austin Fleming offers on his website, and a link to the prayer will be included in the Quick Things email as well. So concluding this week's Quick Things with this prayer. Gracious God, considering all the hoopla there is around the beginning of a new year, it's amazing how quickly we return to business as usual, in spite of the change, at least in number, from 2021 to 2022. More troubling, however, is the way we forget that every day is a new beginning, regardless of the month it falls in or the year that it might be. Every day is a brand new day, no matter how much it looks and feels like yesterday or the day before or last week or last month or last year. Every day is a new day, Lord, a day like no day ever before. And thank you for that. Every day is a day you've made and given to us. To begin again, to start again, to try again, to live as you call us to live, to love as you call us to love, to open ourselves to the grace and peace it might please you to offer this day. And thank you for that. Pull us away from our day after day and into the day you've made for us now, Lord. Help us to be grateful for this day's gifts and hopeful for what tomorrow may bring. Protect us, Lord, while we are awake, and keep and watch over us as we sleep, that awake we may keep watch with you, and asleep rest in your peace. Thank you for this new day and this new year. As much as they may seem like yesterday and the year before, help us make of them what we can and must. In your name, amen.